So when I say what is your hardest day, I imagine some of the stories that these kids bring to you is probably very hard to hear, right?
The hardest story is probably a family losing an older child, maybe that 18, 19-year-old, and they're excited. This is going to be first generation college graduate, and then to be killed by a drunk driver. So when those situations have happened, or unfortunately the young man or the young lady goes to a party, they're graduating, they're celebrating, and then they're given some drug that was laced with something else, and then they lose their life in that manner. Those have been the toughest stories because I just couldn't even imagine.
Yeah. When I was at yours, I recorded you had a little session, what it was, 2 months ago?
Yes.
Where you had teachers from school, which is really great.
And counselors.
And I thought the coolest thing was, the one thing, they learned a bunch of stuff, but you had said to them, what's the one common question, and I'm paraphrasing it, what's the one common question that you usually ask somebody when you know they're going through grief? And the question was, and it was something like this, but the question was, how are you doing? Or how are you feeling, right? It was something like that.
Usually, unfortunately, we're not really taught how to handle grief. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
It's life skills, right? And so we're not taught this. And so usually what, the sense of community or what society does is when they cross paths with, they've heard that you've lost someone, the first thing they're going to say to you is, are you okay?
Right. And why is that not a good thing to say?
It's not. Yeah. It's not. It comes off as you're just trying to say something just to say something, and you don't have anything helpful to say. Let's be honest. If you're not a trained professional, why are you asking? Because if they did say, no, I'm not, and I'm short on my rent because my husband was the breadwinner, are you going to help them pay their rent?
That's a good.
So you have to be really. The best thing you can say is, I'm thinking of you, and I couldn't even imagine, what you're going through, and would you like to talk about it? A lot of times grieving individuals, they just want to be heard. They want to be acknowledged, but they don't want to feel like you're pitying them or that you're minimizing their grief. Because like I said, everybody grieves in different ways. It's really being able to extend courtesy to someone. Their heart is broken. They don't need to be asked questions. And I love when the elementary children, when I ask them this, what do you really want to say? When someone asks you, are you okay? Well, I get so mad, Miss Susana, I wish I could punch that person in the face and then ask them, are you okay? And so I never promote violence, but I'm glad that in that moment they're able to share that with me because they've been carrying that around for a while, and they're like, you know what? I don't like it. I said, and you're well within your right not to like it.
That's right. Something else you did in class, and I got to tell people about it because I thought it was so cool. You were teaching about, as far as communication, how one person, I say something to you and I think I'm being perfectly clear, but what you're hearing, and what you did was you put a board in front of two ladies so they couldn't see each other, and then you gave them both the exact same duplicate, like Legos, right? And this person would do whatever she would do, and she would tell the woman exactly what she's doing. I'm putting the white one on the blue one, I'm putting it this way, and then you're watching the other one, and she's hearing it, but she's doing something totally different. And at the end, when you move the board, it should have been exactly the same because she could not have explained it any better.
Right.
But what the person heard, and that was just a great example of how communication, and that's I think a lot of arguments happen because I'm thinking, how does Susana? Why is she not? And then you start blaming the person. She doesn't care, but no, she truly didn't understand.
Yeah, it's
great.
Perception. And when I teach this to my high schoolers, I do the same exact exercise. They're not allowed to ask questions. They just have to follow along, but they can't see that person. They tell me that it's so frustrating because they want to make sure that that they're doing the same thing. And they're like, you challenge us because you put that, divider in between us and we can't see the other person. And I'm like, but let me explain why. I said, because it's about perception. The Legos represent our thoughts. But just because you're speaking to your 40-year-old mom and you are 17, 18, and you're like, this is my mom, she's supposed to know. No, your mom can't read your mind. She has a different perception. She has a different experience. She's in a different phase in her life. So here you are, 17, talking to a 40-year-old, and if you want to be on the same page, you have to make effort to be able to guide somebody through your thoughts. Make sure, check in, invite them in, but just don't assume, or just don't think, well, they should know, clearly they should know when to help me or what to do. No, we don't, because it's perception. And when we think that people fail us, really we're failing ourselves, because you have a voice for a reason. I teach the kids this. You have a voice for a reason. I make them do a little singing sound, right? You hear that and they're like, yes. And I said, that's your voice. So advocate for yourself, and advocate for yourself in a healthy way, without colorful language, without throwing things across the room, without having to do any of that. You can represent yourself and say what you have to say, and it can come from your heart and your perspective and your thoughts, and that is the formula to be able to say, hey, I'm disappointed or I'm hurt. You speak from your perspective.
Yeah.
Because there's only one of us in this whole world.
That's right.
So we have a very different way of seeing things. So it's not right or wrong. It's just the way that we're seeing it.
Excellent point. Susana, do you have any guide you can give parents or even teachers for stuff they should look for that they may see and know that the kid is going through something, or know that that's a signal the kid needs some sort of counseling?
So in a perfect world, I've been told that that my questionnaire should be given to every child at the beginning of the school year. And in a perfect world, that would be great. Whether it be on an iPad and it's programmed and there's an app, and then we get an alert, right? Maybe one day. That's what I envision, and I hope I get there one day. But in the meantime, all I can say is it's not my program, but seek out, bring resources, check in. You may think that a child needs something and maybe they don't, but it's going to take for you to invest a little bit more time. And I know teachers are bogged down already with lots of work, and so are counselors. But if there is a concern, once again, it's human courtesy. It's just being able to say, hey, I care and I just wanted to check in. And the child will appreciate it. And once you ask those questions, they will open up, because no one's taken them aside to ask them.
Yeah. Do you think social media because the kids have now a bunch of connections to people, their own friends, and then they have connection to a bunch of people, like what's that site? Reddit? You ever hear of Reddit? Mm-hmm. People go out there and ask for advice, and then a bunch of people are throwing advice. And I'm thinking, there's a guy online I watch, he always makes fun of it. He goes, let's just take a look at the question and let's look at the advice, and people are just all over the board. Do you think that social media, and maybe it doesn't play a role at all, but has it played a role? Is it helping? Is it not helping?
Well, I think that it's a great platform, right? It's made our life so much easier. Whenever you want to look up something, a recipe, you want to see how a family member's doing,
True.
We've got access to so many platforms. Now, when it comes to your mental health and something that is of such a sensitive nature, I would be really careful where you're getting your information from, because we now know that someone could be bored in Nebraska just putting stuff out there from their basement, and they're not a verified resource.
Yes.
So make sure that it's a verified resource of someone that is an expert in the field. I never wanted to be a grief and behavior modification expert, but if my challenges and if my life have led me here, I'm gladly willing to take this on.
That's nice. And what is your biggest challenge? What is your biggest challenge today, whether it's on the business side, what is your biggest challenge?
Just being able to get an opportunity, form collaborations. A lot of times, for whatever reason, it's that there's not enough funding, obtaining donations, getting sponsorship. I would love for companies to, want to be more aware of what we do and how they can help, because like I said, we're never going to find a solution, but just the fact that something does exist that's evidence-based, that has supported over 900 children and their families, I think we're on to something.
Yes.
And so I can only keep self-funding this for so long, and eventually we'll see, right? I hope it doesn't come to that, but I'm doing my best. I'm doing my best to keep this alive and to keep knocking on doors. And I always tell people when they're starting a business, how did you do it? How do you keep, floating along? And I tell them, it's not about surviving, it's about thriving.
Oh, I like that. But give me a success story.
So probably one of my biggest success stories is when parents read my parent guide. I was able to translate it into Spanish, and you'll have families come and say, like, this is written not so much to where I felt like I needed a degree to read this. It's very down to earth. It gives them suggestions and tips. And so for parents to come back and tell me, thank you for giving me my family back.
Yeah.
Thank you for helping my daughter to understand that just because my ex-wife and I are divorced now, that I now understand through your program that what she missed was the togetherness.
Yeah.
And now I can reinforce that togetherness when I have her on my weekends. And so being able to work through that and, to be an ally with my ex-wife versus being, using the child as a pawn or using the child as a spy or that's not what the child is. That's not why the child has been gifted to you. Your child is, and it's, situations happen, you do divorce, but now respect that the child wants to just be your child.
Yes. Yes.
So those are probably the biggest success stories when I can have divorced parents form a relationship again and be on better terms when nothing else was working.
How many kids have you helped so far? Do you know? Do you have an idea?
Oh, today,
Just with Shielding Hearts.
With Shielding Hearts,
Yes.
I'm close to the 900 range.
Really?
Yes.
How long have you been doing this?
I started in 2017.
Holy cow.
Yes.
Susana, wow.
Yes.
So when you meet the kids the first time, especially if it's multiple kids, right? Sometimes they don't even know each other, right? They're different ages. So is it hard to get them to open up the very first time you meet with them?
So they come in, and the first thing I say to them is that I really wish I could be meeting them on different circumstances. But if they've been sent to my group, it's usually because they're going through a difficult situation. And I want them to know that they are not going to have to talk about their situation. They're not going to have to share their story. I'm going to be teaching them how to recover from it because I know that they're hurting. And you just see this look on their face like, oh, wow. Because it's something they've never heard of before.
Yeah.
And so they come week to week and they're learning, we're going through hands-on activities, so it's cognitive therapy, it's behavior modification therapy, it's play therapy, it's all formulated into one, collaborating with them. And so they walk out of the room with this exercise that we did, like we've created something. They walk out, with a project in their hand, and it's kind of, and we're laughing in there. And a lot of times I'll get counselors to ask me, I thought that was a grief group. Well, just because it's a grief group doesn't mean these children need to be crying. They were already hurt enough. I want to alleviate these symptoms that they're experiencing. And so I tell them, before you met Miss Susana, you need to forgive yourself. You didn't know what you were doing. There is no guidebook for this. And so forgive yourself, and moving forward, after I teach you these skills to be able to cope in a healthy way, if you revert back to those behaviors, that's on you.
Yeah.
But now you have an option. And so they're all in because I challenge them, and they look forward to week to be able to see, like, what am I going to learn this week?
Yeah.
Improve their communication, being able not to sabotage relationships, learning how to be able to process, the goodbye letter to their loved ones, being able to journal, and just in fun ways. So a lot of times people can say this is a unique program, but I really can say that it's a unique program and that it works.
Susana, before we forget, would you mind giving me your website and your phone number? I'll throw it right here. Best way for people to reach you.
Absolutely. So it's Shielding Hearts is our website, and you can find out great information on how to be able to get our program into your agency, your school district, community partnerships. I mean, we're here for you. Also, you can call our office at 832-752-5742.